Good morning. Good morning. Hi, Stace. Hi, Leslie. Welcome to Writer's Circle. We are picking up where we left off. Last week, we were talking about the editing process. This week, we circle back to our 4-part creation process. So it becomes a circle when editing circles back to rest and reflection, dreaming, and checking in with that inspiration. The hell are we here to do? I can't hear or see either of you, but Stace, I saw your note, so I know that you're here. Great that you're with us.
I'm here. I'm eating breakfast, so
Do
I'll
it.
pop in when I'm done chewing.
That's all good. We show up as we can. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't speaking to the void. So we come back. Good to see your face. Thank you very much.
I'm dressed, I'm presentable, I finished eating my
Oh
breakfast.
my God, it's like ahead of the game,
Here we
right?
are.
We got up, we got horizontal. Love it.
It's a great start. It's a great start.
Yeah, celebrate the wins. So I think most people, again, still think about progress in the shape of a line. And I still do. I'm like, my calendar, my timeline, my lifeline, my everything feels like it's a straight line. But both like the phases of the moon, we're going into a new moon phase. It is a actual celestial reminder to take a deep breath, to look at what it is that we're doing. How are we showing up in the world or on the page? Are we doing what we mean to be doing? And whether that is I need to take a nap because I'm going too hard and I'm exhausted, or how did I show up for my goals last month? What worked? What didn't work? How will I continue to show up for what I'm working on in the future? And ideally, it's a recipe that we like, right? Leslie's having breakfast. Fantastic. Hi, Jelitza. Nice to see you, my darling. If breakfast doesn't taste very good, don't make the same thing again tomorrow. If it tastes good, do it again tomorrow, right? And it seems so obvious. However, I think half of the mistakes we make is we keep repeating things that didn't work last time because we don't always pause and reflect. Whether we are talking about writing or we are talking about life or we are talking about our business, I love that the new moon this year is on November 1st. It is sort of a cool, how did October go? And so that's going to be the focus of this conversation today. What's working for you? What's not working for you? A lot of this is how are you showing up for your goal? And leaning into it is like, how are we going to do it differently? Is arguably planning, but I'm not worried about it. I had a writer's retreat over the last week, and I had a lot of valuable lessons that came from it. But if I don't pause and recognize those valuable lessons, I'm going to make all those same mistakes again next time I set myself up for a writer's retreat. If I don't see my wins and only look for all the ways that I failed and mistakes I've made, I'm also probably not setting myself up for another successful month. Anybody have any experience with anything that I've just mentioned? Nope, I live in a vacuum and I'm the only one. All right, good. Glad to hear it. So when we started this process, wherever you were when we started this new moon phase, the dreaming phase, can also include quieting, listening to what's the whisper, what's the passion that's driving you to do this crazy thing in the first place. Reconnecting with that on a regular basis keeps you honest, keeps you focused, it can keep you motivated. And the flip piece to that is what's working and what's not. all of that is super valuable information, right? Julita asked a couple of interesting questions, I think, about process, about like, how long should I work and how long, like, you should work as long as it works for you, and then you should stop, right? If focusing on your writing or your planning or editing only works for 55 minutes and then you want to go doom scroll, or, you know, like you could sit there for 3 more hours and accomplish 1 more sentence, then no, you should stop, right? And I sent you that link, the 50-10 rule. And a lot of people for productivity work for 50 minutes and then take a 10-minute break. And if you need to set an alarm to tell you how long 50 minutes is and how long 10 minutes is, then do that, right? I have this incredible terrace in my house, and I had 16 minutes between when one meeting ended and when one call started. And I made myself a bowl of cereal and I sat out on the terrace instead of taking the bowl of cereal right back in front of my computer. I was probably on the terrace for 4.5 minutes, but I had a fundamental energetic and psychological recharge. Does not take as long as you think. If I were writing, maybe I could come back and do some more writing. If not, I could come back and do something else that I wanted to focus on. That works for me. When I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I want to work for 2.5 hours because the world's quiet, that's what I do. For a while, I used to spend an hour and a half being pissed that I was awake in the middle of the night, until I realized that was the coolest thing in the whole world. It was the best time for me to work. And so I did, and I got over myself. There's not one right way to do this, but that's what this opportunity every month is. Reconnect with what you're inspired about and look at, what did you plan? How did you show up for it? What worked? What didn't work? Okay. I want to open it up and keep it succinct and quick, because it's actually a little easy to lie to ourselves when we get into the weeds and the details of all the things that happened, like what worked, what didn't work. You can unmute yourself, or you can drop into the chat something that worked, something that didn't work.
Well, I can start.
Bring it on, baby.
Motivation wise, because sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling it today. The music's not here, so I'm just not gonna do it.
Yep.
But then I read this book by Brian Tracy. What's the name of the book? Something about success, whatever. And he said something that stuck in my head is, do every day something that brings you closer to your goal.
Yep.
So for me, it works. It's like, okay, today I'm just gonna sit here and see, but at least I do that. I'm not just gonna say, oh, not today, the music's not here, you know. So that has been helping me this month, and I feel I have accomplished a lot. It's the shitty first draft, so it's a lot of shitty things.
Great.
But
that's,
you know,
huge.
It's closer to the end result that I want.
And you can't do the second draft without the shitty first draft. That's you cannot jump over that hurdle. It's not a thing you can skip, right? I love that you bring this up, because I think sort of discipline is an interesting little beast, and sometimes I do discipline in a way that I like beat myself up about it. November is National Novel Writing Month, which is amazing. I love it. And although we're not writing novels, we're writing nonfiction. The goal, and a whole bunch of people do this, is to write a 50,000 word manuscript in 30 days. And if you just do simple math, it's like 1,667 words every single day. Okay. That's a little rigid. And not everyone, and certainly there's not a lot of muse when you're like forcing yourself to squeeze out that many words. It always feels like popping a pimple to me. Like if you just push hard enough, then it'll come out. But usually leaves a scar and like isn't how best to get it out. However, the just waiting for the muse to strike also is not a great strategy. This is one of the reasons I love this 4-part creation process, is because you can show up for your book in lots of different ways. If you're like, well, I don't really feel like writing today, but you know what? I'm gonna get on Canva for half an hour and play with cover design just so I can have like the echocardiogram of what my book might look like. I just want to think about it. And then I have a visual that there's an actual book in there, right? I'm not just getting fat. I'm actually growing a baby. That's still you working on your book. If you are slammed, exhausted, 12 hours from getting sick, you need to sleep. And that is you working on your book. But it's not, there's no muse, so I'm just gonna like Netflix and chill for 8 hours. That's not you working on your book. That's being afraid, right? There's a million ways to work on your book, including just calling somebody else who's writing a book or scheduling a session with, Jalitza and I live in the same city. So like reach out to one of the other writers and say, hey, let's meet at the coffee shop. I'm going to write for 45 minutes. Let's be there at 10 a.m. Right? You can drink your latte and stare at your notebook for 45 minutes. And that's still you working on your book because the thinking and feeling is happening. So I fully agree. In one of my books, I talk about micro shifts. I was supposed to run an Ironman in December. Supposed to, emphasis on supposed to, because it turns out that there's a lot of little things you're supposed to do. I don't own a bicycle. So like, I'm probably not gonna go on a 53-mile ride on December 1st, even though that would be the easiest part, right? If I wanted to be able to swim 2 miles, I needed to be in the pool every day, swimming one more lap every single day. That's what you need to do. Your book is the same way. We need to get a little bit stronger and take it a little bit at a time. And every book is written one word at a time. If you add a sentence to your book today, you've worked on your book. And if you sit down to write one sentence, chances are you'll be there for 45 minutes and write a page. It's the psychological hurdle that sometimes is hard. So I love that. I love that you've found that recipe. So your recipe is show up every day and do something from the manuscript. I love it. Gorgeous. Leslie, I know you just got on board with us recently, but you have been writing for a while. Leslie or Stace, whoever wants to take it away. Anything you've learned that really works? Anything you learned that you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again?
Well, I have done National Novel Writing Month for years and years. It tends to kind of take, the ending or the beginning of school when my kids were at home, it was always chaotic and crazy. And then I was like, oh, okay, now I can just have time, and I would make that a priority every day. I didn't always write the amount of words, but the trick is one day you'll write like 20,000 words. And if you just write 5 words, then your little graph looks okay.
Yeah.
Because there's a tracker. And so I've had like 3 years of crazy that I have not done it. So I'm actually very excited for Friday to get here so I can put myself into that routine that has worked in the past. So, I've done Ironmans. I'm over that. So let's write some words.
let's sit for 70 miles, 70.3 miles of sitting. Let's do that instead. I love it. Okay, cool. Are you working on fiction or nonfiction right now? Or are you just going to NaNoWriMo for
my
motivation?
November is going to be nonfiction about job hunting.
Awesome. And you're just using that container to get that done. I love it.
Because I started a book, I think I might have mentioned it last week. I started a book in the 90s about job hunting and put it down because of grad school and all this stuff. And I still have it. So I'm going to kind of go back and reflect on what has and hasn't changed. And
Awesome.
a lot has not changed, even though we have all the technology. There's just a
Right.
lot of bullshit. So I'm calling out bullshit on job
Awesome.
hunting. So
Love
that's
it.
my goal.
Okay. Well, and so you know that I take the takeaways from these and share them in the community. And so like takeaway could be, we can all use the National Novel Writing Month platform, the container, the energetics of like thousands of people around the planet doing this every day for the entire month to be like, yes, I'm really going to show up and do this every day. And like Leslie said, there is a like, put in your word count for each day and it like shows you the progress bar, which is great. It's a software we don't do, but you can just borrow theirs. So there's a tip, trick, if anybody wants to hop in. I'm considering doing the same thing. So every time I do it, I managed to like, my computer revolts. Week 1 or week 3, it just like bing, like flat lines on me. So I'm a little, some past tech fears lingering, but anyway. Anything that hasn't worked? Or Stace, what's a win or something that has worked that's going forward with you into November? And then we'll look at things.
So if you recall, last time when I
Oh, I
professed my
recall.
ignorance and confusion, I have to honor the system and the team first, because when I did break away with Erica, not only did she explain what the gonectogazoid was, but how it actually fit into its work with the Futzer valve. And
There you go.
so now I have a lot more clarity. And the lesson that I took away from that was that what was not working was trying to work in the same system that I had been used to.
Yeah.
And I was willing to start over again. And
Yeah.
that actually allowed me to see that I don't really have to. It can be a combination that actually gets me where I want to go. And so look at this beautiful disaster.
Yay, it makes sense to your brain. You're blurred out, but I know
Yeah.
that it's a mind map. There it
Yeah,
is. There
there
it
it
is. I
is.
see it. It's a mind map.
Yeah. So that is complete garbage, but a beautiful construction of it felt right. It felt in line with the system that would work for me.
Yeah.
And so I really had to abandon some of the thinking that I was holding on to invite in new, better systems.
Awesome.
And that is
Is
certainly
that a process or content or both?
both.
Yeah.
I was able to, that's what a fear of mine was, that I would lose content or continuity in starting over. And it really only supplemented what I had and allowed me to look at it in a new dynamic way. And, you know, I've been studying about metrics. I'm an analytic by heart. And
Right.
so Google's analytic of how people learn and what sticks is you have to have 7 hours, 11 points, and 4 sources
Okay.
to actually
To learn
get
something.
something.
Yeah.
And so, you know, allowing me to look at this from another source and address the same points
Yeah.
over and over again has given me some insight into my own process. And it really allowed me, I don't know if you've seen, because I just did it yesterday, I resubmitted my authority statement
Great.
because I realized that before I was just kind of making an introduction of
It
myself.
was your LinkedIn bio. It wasn't
Yeah,
your
really, it was
authority.
a bio. It was a bio and not an authority statement.
Yeah.
And so I really had to figure out, you know, what am I writing about? What would my listener want in
Yep.
a leader to take them by the hand and show them this journey?
Right.
And that made me change a lot of of things really, and tap into what my true core heartfelt message was, and a little bit more how to deliver it in a manner that's digestible, and see things as my audience and not necessarily as the authority.
Yeah, good. These are fundamental, like, gear tweaks, right? And it's gotta, like, we're unlocking a safe, and we've got to get the right thing in the right place at the right time, so everything aligns, and it's like, there it is. Okay, I got it. Okay. And each of these processes that we talk about, like a mind map, it's not the end all be all. It's like stretching before you go running. It's what am I working with here? What's happening? What works, what doesn't work, what am I including, what am I not including? Anybody try anything that you're like, yeah, that was a fail, I'm not going to do that again?
I tried something new based on a past fail.
Okay.
So back in my earlier, when I was like trying to write a billion words all the time and I was busy, I would record it on my on my phone, just hit open an email or whatever and just record myself, voice to text. And then I get home and look at it and be like, what is that? I have to mouth it and see if I could read my lips to see what it meant, because it didn't record it properly. So I got Otter.
Yes.
And boy, does that work a lot better.
Yes.
So there's kind of the full circle.
Okay. Good. Right. That didn't work. That doesn't mean I have to throw the baby out with the bathwater and like write it by hand and then transcribe it. No, there's one thing didn't work. Keep looking in that same vein. If speaking out loud works for you, I love Otter. Oh, it's not there, but the book that's usually right here. Where'd it go? Interesting. I wrote the entire thing on Otter. The entire thing.
Yeah, I foresee a lot of it in my future.
It is so phenomenal. Not for everybody, again, but everybody who's like, what the hell is this? And or who likes to talk should try it. Yalitza, I'm not sure if you can set Otter to do in Spanish. Have you checked that out? I think you can just set the language setting, and then it transcribes and records the audio all for you. It's worth looking into. If not, maybe there's another audio Spanish voice to text that's good. But once I fully outlined my manuscript, I had a Post-it that was my chapter format for each chapter. And I sat on my balcony and I just talked. I talked until that whole chapter was exercised from my being. I made sure it was saved. I exported it and I grabbed the next Post-it. I wrote 13,000 words in a day, in an afternoon on my balcony. In the morning at the coffee shop, where I've seen Stace and Jalitza, I outlined my book and made the Post-it outlines for each chapter. In the afternoon, I sat on my balcony and I wrote the first half of that shitty draft. By the weekend, I'd filled in 20 something thousand words, and I was most of the way done with the manuscript that turned into that book. So yes, Otter, big fat love of my life. And in the context of NaNoWriMo, if you're trying to get 1,500, 1,600 words out, I used to transcribe these calls. Sometimes I still do. Apparently I can speak 4,000 words in an hour. So there's that, right? I would like, take that, NaNoWriMo. I can get my whole book done in a real quick time if I know what the hell it is that I'm talking about, which is where the planning phase comes in. It's like, planning is, am I going to use Otter? Planning is, when during the day? Is it in the morning? Is it 3 o'clock in the morning? Is it nighttime? Is it only for an hour when Jalitza's son is in daycare because that's all she's got, right? She's got 44 minutes. Great. But planning is also, like Stace, what am I trying to say to my audience? And how can I say it to them in a way that's going to make sense to them? Who do I have to be so that they can hear it? What do I have to share of myself? How do I have to show up with authority? How do I show up with an authority that turns people off? Okay, don't do that. How do I show up with authority that lets people in and lets people connect, and lets people dig into what it is that I'm asking them to dig into because I've just shown them my whatever, and then they're willing to trust and explore and take a risk with me. All of that's planning. Love it. Anybody else have a, I'm not going to do that again? I got one. No? Okay. You can jump in later. So I was super proud of myself. I scheduled my solo writing retreat. Turns out the last time, these are supposed to be monthly occurrences. The last time I was there was July 21st. So that was a little bit more than a month ago. I booked it. I got somebody to take care of my human. I got somebody to take care of my dog. So I go offline for 3 days. The night before, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this. Threw some stuff in a bag, went. But I was not psychologically or intellectually prepared. I didn't know if I was editing. I didn't know if I was drafting. I didn't know if I was planning. And I was just sort of all over the map. Until I realized that the reason I haven't had a writing retreat since July 21st is because I've been going so hard in my life and my business and my everything since July 21st, or even later, earlier. I was so damn exhausted that I just needed to rest. It took me 2 full days to realize that I needed to rest, and then I just rested. But that was me working on my book. Unfortunately, that was the best that I could do. It's not unfortunate, it's fine. But I didn't have any of the things in place. I didn't set any time for myself before the retreat to know what I was going to do on the retreat. And so I didn't set myself up for the most success. Next time, at least a week before, I will need to look at the manuscript. Where am I? What does it need? Do I still even agree with what I wrote last time? That kind of thing. That was just my takeaway. So I had a really lovely not working on my book a couple of days, but I needed it. So I only spent, 30 hours trying to pop a pimple. It wasn't ready. And then I watched a lot of Lincoln Lawyer. It was great. Anybody recognize that they need rest or retouching back with the inspiration, the motivation, the why to go into this new phase, this new sort of cycle, this whole new month with that burning fire of like, get out of my way, I'm writing a book, nothing can stop me. Anybody need any of that?
I think that for me, just relatively being new, because after last Tuesday was the first time that I immersed myself in the cycle. Yeah. and really starting to think in alignment with that gave me some perspective, because I've been so content focused.
Yeah.
And I think appropriately for what I was doing, it was just get it out, just get it out. Yeah. And then because of that mindset, I started thinking just get more out, which stopped being productive. Yeah. And one of the first things that I read that stuck out to me in the description of the cycle was rest like a motherfucker. And I'm like, I'm not. Yeah. I'm just not. And okay. So the first thing that I did was in the waning moon cycle to really just kind of look at everything and say, yeah. What do I have? Yeah. What needs to be edited? What needs to be changed? What do I think is good? How do I poise myself now for a rest cycle? Because if I don't get ready for a rest cycle, yeah, I won't.
Yeah, it can be like 4 days of neurotic, not rest.
Exactly.
Anybody know
4 days
about
of anxiety, thinking about my
Look, I'm resting.
preparation for the next
When can I stop
cycle,
resting?
which
Yeah, this kind of
isn't even there yet. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't even exist, and I'm worried about it.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
so what I was able to do with reading through the cycle work and aligning with it, and it really resonated with me, was that I just need to give myself some grace and take a look at what I've done thus far, because I've done stuff.
Yeah, you have.
And so if I can just give myself some perspective, then I can actually allow myself that comfort.
Yeah.
But until I
Yeah.
until I allow myself to be okay with what I'm doing in the waning cycle, I won't be okay with the rest cycle, because I'll still feel undone.
Sure. And that's what today is. It's looking at, it's taking the temperature, right? So Leslie, have you officially signed up with NaNoWriMo? Like they know, they're sending you emails, they're like counting down.
Oh, I've been on it for years, so yeah, I
I
haven't
haven't-
put this one in yet.
Okay.
So I will do that today. Right, that's
And
easy.
that,
I
right,
have my
and that's what I mean.
title. Mhm.
Right, so like registering with NaNoWriMo, done. That is me. So we talk about these phases and these energies, and the moon, this does not dictate. I don't want you to think that the moon tells you what you're supposed to be working on your book. It serves as a really great reminder to show you this rhythm, because if you look up in the sky and there's a full moon, you're like, oh. And if you look up in the sky and it's a new moon, you're like, oh, right, cycles. And it's a really great.
You live in Seattle, you don't see the moon ever. So.
And then you look on your internet app and say, like, what's the sky supposed to be doing right now? Sorry. I wish I could lend you my sunset. But it teaches us to recognize changing cycles, but also to practice, where am I in this process? Where is my energy? Where's my focus? Where's my passion? And realizing, Stace, that no, I haven't rested because I need to do X first. There's the book that I didn't work on at my writer's retreat is actually all about this process. And there's a whole section of a chapter, where each of the phases has either masculine or feminine energy associated with it. Intellectual or creative, right? Structured or wild. And the waning phase, the editing phase, and before we rest is intellectual. It's logical, it's masculine. And when I say masculine, feminine, you know that I'm not talking about human biology. It doesn't matter. These are creation energies, and we need both, and we need to cycle between the two. And I define masculine energy the way that my mentor taught me to. Masculine energy provides and protects your dreams. It's the container. For the feminine to be wild, free, creative, haphazard, sleeping, whatever it happens to want or need to be in the time. But it's absolutely true that if you don't have that container, then the feminine can't do whatever the feminine would do. It will seep out the sides, or I get an image of warriors staying up all night in a circle around the village so that the women and children can sleep. Women and children are not sleeping if they don't know that they're surrounded by a circle of warriors, right? We will stay up. Somebody will keep us safe. And that's it. If we're activated and our container hasn't been set, then the relaxation can't happen in the rest phase, and the creativity can't happen in the drafting phase. And so planning and editing are both masculine. They are the structures. They are the evaluation, the assessment, the analysis that can then create the space for whatever the next thing happens to be. Does that make sense to each person sort of in their own way? For years, I used to say in my business, at the end of every month, I would debrief. How many leads did we get? How many calls did we have? How many conversions did we have? How many whatevers? What worked on each of those things? What needs to be improved on each of those things? Great. I never did. Did I get better? No. If I did, it was haphazard and I didn't know it. It's the same process in our writing. And so that's what we're doing right now. We're doing a writing debrief. What worked? Good. Keep doing that. What didn't work? Great. What can we tweak? Give it a try. Like, even if it's a shot in the dark, give it a try. So this week, and I love that the moon is perfectly in sync with us right now, between now and Friday is a massive invitation to reflect on your process, to reflect on your content, but also to create that container so that you can rest like a motherfucker, whatever that looks like for you, right? Sometimes rest literally means rest. Sometimes it means tapping back into the inspiration. Leslie's had a book in her since the 90s. Is that 30 years ago? I know, but it was a minute ago. Okay.
I got busy.
Okay.
I've written others in between.
I know you have. I know. We got busy. We had babies. We got jobs. We had things. Because if it was the only thing on your plate, it would have been done in the 90s. But I love that it's a sort of almost retrospective, not nearly as much has changed in job hunting as it should have in the last 30 years. That's super cool. That would never have been able to exist 30 years ago. So one of the things that this phase could do is tapping back into why you still give a damn. Why did you care then? And how is it that you still care enough to dedicate the next month / more of your life to bring this baby to life? And know why the hell it has to happen now. Right? And all the other books that you mentioned last time, there's all these other books that are also begging for your attention. Shh, not now. I'm working on this book because, right? And it's not just because it's been there longer, right? So really finding your unshakable, this is why I'm doing this, right? Jalitza, when you and I met, you were like, I have a couple books I could write. You chose one. You chose a very specific audience. You chose to write in a certain language. Knowing why and having that why be so fierce, like a phoenix and a porcupine and a nothing can get in my way. It's like warrioring up so that you can rest. Warrioring up so that no story of, oh, the muse isn't here, so I don't have to show up for it, right? No story, which is just, it's masked doubt in some ways, right? Like there's only one right way to write. I have to wait till the muse is tapping me. Well, Liz Gilbert probably gets quoted way more often than anybody else on this, but you know how to get the muse to tap you? To show up at your desk every day and just wait for the muse to come, but you have to be the first one, right? I was waiting for you to call me. No, you were running around taking care of your kid. I can't tap you when your baby, like with your baby in the middle of a Zumba class is not a good time for inspiration to tap you, right? Changing a diaper is not a great time for inspiration to strike. You have to sit there and just say, like, I am ready for you. Tap me now. And it's sort of like dial up. It doesn't always happen right away. You sort of have to just wait for the old router to make that horrible sound and like connect. And then you're like, okay, I'm writing. Yeah, the first 3 pages of what I'm writing is total shit, but ooh, there's a sentence. Now I'm on a streak. Okay. I think I've hammered this point hard enough. Is there anything anybody needs? I'm happy to stay on for the rest of the hour, but I just want to also acknowledge that sometimes maybe ending 15 minutes early is going to give you the gap you didn't think you had. And you can go stand outside for 12 of those 15 minutes and have some unexpected recharge. Anybody have any
I
final
just
thoughts?
have a
Yeah.
question, as far as logistics.
Mhm.
Did you and Yelitza there in Medellin start this at 11? Because I'll be in Medellin
Yeah.
next week, so
Good question. Okay.
so it'll be 11.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There's a time zone change
Yeah,
because the United States really just wants to mess with me. This is always at noon Eastern.
okay.
Okay. Which means, Jalitza, this will change for us. My brain breaks. I think it might start at
No, it's gonna be the same time. Yeah,
next week, maybe, but then there's a time zone change. Trust me. The US changes and Colombia goes from being on Central Time to being on Eastern Time. So
correct. So it's
after
the same
November
time for both
7th, after November 7th, it will be noon in
for
Colombia
us.
and
Exactly. So
noon
it's
Eastern.
the same
Yeah,
time for both.
Leslie, it
that's
doesn't
what
have
I
to
was
change
trying to
because
figure out
yeah,
logistically.
I know it's a brain meld for sure.
Okay, I think
Yeah.
I've got it.
Okay. After the time zone change, it becomes noon Colombian time as well.
Medellin, yeah.
Yeah. You will be back.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's interesting timing, and I didn't really plan it like this. I'm coming back Halloween.
Perfect.
So I'll be back to rest, whatever that means.
Land of eternal spring and
Friday.
land of permanent rest. You can
Exactly.
make it. Okay. Yeah, the time zone twice a year blows me out, but that's what Google calendars are for. Any other questions, enthusiasm, excitement? I'm also gonna go register for NaNoWriMo and just see if I can't squeeze this book out of me this month.
What's NaNoWriMo? I'm not familiar.
National Novel Writing Month.
Oh,
NaNoWriMo.
okay.
Yeah. And it's quick, you can just register, but it is fun to have, the visual progress bar. And I did a global Joe Dispenza meditation a couple weeks ago where thousands of people all around the world were all meditating on like peace and love at the same time. They did this last September and it changed the electromagnetic field of the planet. And so I have the feeling that NaNoWriMo sort of does the same thing, that like everybody gets a little bit more writery because there's thousands of people focused every single day of the month on this thing. I think it's sort of awesome. So I'm gonna tap into the collective
I
consciousness.
downloaded Otter yesterday, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
Don't know what to use it on yet, but I'm going to. I'll find something.
I mean, the first thing I did, I was just like hit and I like started talking because I just wanted to see how it worked and how do I export a file and how does this, so you don't, talk and text like the most amazing chapter and then panic because you can't figure out how to export it, right? And then have a conniption because do it on something that doesn't matter. Yeah. Play with it.
I have a small question regarding the shitty first draft.
Yes.
Because I think I know the answer, but I need to know.
Good. Tell me the
that I
question and
know.
tell me the answer. Yeah. And then I'll tell you if you're right.
So I think I finished my first chapter, my first shitty chapter.
Yeah.
And I was struggling. I was thinking, should I keep going? What if this is like really shitty and then I'm just gonna shit, and
But
I know that's
it's
supposed to be the
really,
way.
if it's really shitty, then
Exactly.
you've done a great job. Yeah.
But then I feel, am I continuing just shitting? Like, or should I just make it less shitty and then move on? Knowing
Okay.
that it's not as, I don't know, but I know I am supposed to move on and just
Okay.
shit all the way. But I think I needed to hear it from you.
All right. It's a yes and answer. If you reread your first chapter, I recommend that you read it saying, okay, and ask yourself some simple questions like, what am I doing well? And you're only reading for that. Don't change grammar, don't change editing, like don't edit it. Read it. What's good about this? Because that's going to help you keep doing that in the future chapters so that you can get better as you go along. If there's something, and then read it, asking yourself the same question, what can I do better? Without changing that first chapter, what can I do better? Oh, I don't share any of my own stories in this chapter. I'm just telling people what to do. I can do better. Next chapter, I'm going to share something in context to prove. So what am I doing well? What can I do better? Don't change what's already been there, but go into it with that. Boom. One of the things, I don't do this, but I've heard people do this. They read the last chapter that they drafted before they sit down to write the next one for continuity. Like, oh yeah, I remember, especially if it was a week or 3.5 months ago, I don't remember what I wrote. I can't transition well from that to this if I don't know where I left off. But don't get sucked into I have to make this perfect, because you will never move forward. Read it. What's good? What can I improve on? Great. I'm going to spend 12 minutes reading the last chapter, moving on, applying what I learned. That would be the only reason I would say to look back. Does that feel like that works? Okay. Yeah. Move forward, because the goal is to have an entire shitty draft. Yeah. Beautiful. Any last questions?
I just had one last thought. I want to reconnect back to your Ironman training that didn't happen. So
Right.
when you're doing,
I'm not iron or man, so I'm like,
it's okay.
Strong, squishy women training. Yeah.
Anyway, when you have a formal plan that you're working towards a goal in that sport, you have weekly builds. So for 3 weeks, you increase the endurance in some level, either speed or time, by 10%. So you're going up, up, up. And then the 4th week, you drop back 40%. It's your taper week. And then you do it again.
Right.
And so it's really similar to the cycle of writing. And that taper week's not easy because you're getting yourself used to this level where you're like, oh, I got to do this. I got to work harder. I got to work harder. And then you have to, oh no, what do I do? But it's good for your body. It's good for your soul. And by the end of training, that week or 2 before your big event is called taper madness. People have it. They're like, what do I do? Like, I'm not supposed to go ride my bike for hours at a time. Like, what do I do? But it's very similar.
Love it. I love
so
it.
if you're going to put that into a book somewhere, there you go.
Fantastic. Thank you. For the Ironman that I didn't actually do, but if I had, it would be because I followed this brilliant pattern. Going in the book. I love it. Thank you. I'm actually thinking of just going to Cartagena to watch the Ironman that I'm not a part of, because I do think psychologically, just even to do a race that I've never seen sort of is like a psychological gap for me. One of my students actually just did one in Portugal, and so I saw all of his pictures and I was like, okay, I get it. I sort of get it.
They always need volunteers, and you get behind the scenes and it's way more fun.
Is that a full event or just the half?
It's a half Ironman.
Can't say just a half.
I know, 70.3, just 70.3.
Yeah, I did that. And I can
Good.
tell you that I was in condition enough that when I finished, I thought, not bad. What I didn't think was I could do that again. So I never trained for the full.
Yeah.
And I don't know how this translates into writing, but I can tell you that I actually did suffer from a depression post-race.
Yep.
And it was difficult for me physically and mentally, because I had been on that and I didn't have another race pending.
Right.
And emotionally, you're just kind of left out there in this high state of function with nowhere to go.
Mm.
And it took me months
Yeah.
to be okay with
Hmm.
just going to the gym and not getting on the treadmill with a sleeve of Fig Newtons and running for 4 hours.
Does getting on the couch with a sleeve of Fig Newtons
That
count?
counts. Count it.
Okay. Okay. I got it. I
There's
can do
different
that.
training, but
All right. Okay.
I could implement that into my writing training.
Well, and that's the thing, we are in writers training. We're in training. And especially if it's the first time, I mean, it's not Leslie's first time, but if it's the first time, it's your first race. There's a million things that you have never done before and have to learn how to do until it's muscle memory. And then it's easy. We say, like, we're here to make the impossible easy, because it is until you do it, and then you do it. Everyone's like, you can still go. And I was like, yeah, it's 30 days from now. I'm not in condition to like train for an Ironman with 30 days. I also am a single parent running a job, like writing a book. So I like, no, but I might go and I'll see if they need a volunteer. I like that idea. Cool. Beautiful. So I encourage you to reflect, rest, and gear up for a whole nother cycle where, because a month from now, 28 days from now, we will be right back here having done a lap around the writer's race and figuring out what's working. That's it. What's working in my story? What's working in my process? What's working in the content I've already written? What's working in figuring out the next piece? That's it. That's it. Beautiful. Share selfies of whatever your rest looks like. Show us how you're doing it. Inspire each other. And I will see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks for showing up and bringing your full process to it. I love it. Have a great week.
Thank
Bye.
you, you too. Bye.